Chapter 1. The Beginning. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 2. It starts as a child. I'm wrapped in fear, afraid my timid bladder will spill on the brown shag carpet. Staring at the beet-red face from little eyes, little body, little everything, the enormity of my father's anger is too big for me. He sees me struggling to hold my urine inside. He sees me weakening under his bellowing anger. This, for him, is a discipline win. He towers, he screams, he promises the fraternity paddle hanging on the wall. The Brotherhood of Lambda Chi Alpha is always ready when I fall short. They are always ready to taunt me in my mistakes. I am sent to retrieve the paddle from the wall. His paddle is always used. He's always the one to deliver the verdict, always show me my failures, always remind me of my faults. I tremble under the weight of his anger. I can feel my pee coming. I return with the paddle, and the Brotherhood delivers my judgment. I crumple under the pain. It pales in comparison to his screaming. The pain came with the harsh and angry words, not the paddle. I am released first to the bathroom, and then the quiet of my room to change my soiled clothes. Anger makes us all stupid. Joanna Spiri, Heidi. I am my father's daughter, raised and bruised by his anger. But that was not all. There was another in my life who taught differently, one open-hearted, joyful, and brave. When I met the embrace of this woman, I felt as though I was delighted in, enjoyed, deeply loved. Grandma Elnora. If my father was anger, she was joy. In the midst of her own desperately hard struggles, she saw joy in simple moments, like a giggle with her sisters, an ice-cold Coke held with a clean tissue, and an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet. She loved big, instigated laughter, and was never afraid to get dirty. She extended herself in every direction to meet my siblings and me in love. She showed me how to dig worms, clean fish, and enjoy the labor of the garden. She taught me that life was seldom what you expected, but you could endure. Her heart was different from my own, but she showed me there was joy even in the harsh disappointments of life. Her farm was my sanctuary. In her home, I was the cherished granddaughter. I was the favorite, but my sister Jonna would tell you she was the favorite, as would my brother Dennis. That was how big her love was, deep and wide enough to embrace us all. The farm my Grandma Elnora and Grandpa Homer shared on Elliott Street was this beautiful place of peace I escaped to every summer. Endless pudding pops, cousins, watermelons served with my own salt shaker, and hours spent in search of the biggest catch in their pond. Together we would quietly wait next to one another for the subtle twitch of our bobbers. She was my hero. I wanted to grow up to be just like her, wear silky nightgowns, know where to dig the best night crawlers, and spend each extra moment in my life fishing. My best childhood memories always include her love, generous and full. I grew up wanting a kitchen painted red, scented by pork, mostly bacon, just like hers. My home now has the stool I perched myself upon as a tow-headed young thing in the corner of my grandma's bright red kitchen. I would sit and listen to the sweet Kentucky cadence of the accents of my family members, close and distant, and stories shared around her generous full table. Plates heaped with fried potatoes, simple coleslaw, corn on the cob brought in that morning, fried fish of all sizes, bluegill, crappie, largemouth bass, enormous sliced tomatoes, partnered with loads of salt, bread and butter, and pie. I loved visiting her home. I knew the door was always open to me. I would find her running through the side door, hollering in the delight of my arrival. "Mercy, mercy, mercy, look who came to see me." It was as though she sat on her couch peering out the picture window looking for me. I loved visiting there, but I did not live there. The story of my childhood consists of high highs and low lows. Sensitive before understanding what the word meant, I struggled for footing in my littlest years. I felt my weakness. I knew my smallness. Being raised under anger, the voice of the child is lost. Seeing my brother and sister fall short grew a quiet in me that was unmistakable. The only voice I had was the one that knew how to keep harmony, be liked, and win at all costs. I was the youngest, the observer, the witness to so much pain. I muted myself before the swelling anger that filled our house and stole the peace of all who resided within its walls. The one who struggled with anger knew the least peace. No true solitude exists when self-control is bypassed and anger given full vent. It never accomplishes its goal. When I faced my towering daddy from my smallness, his beet-red face, the spitting words at a fevered pitch, the screaming that was meant to correct only broke my heart. It broke theirs, too. After the screaming and the paddle of the brotherhood, I was greeted by the kind faces of my siblings. They did not speak words to me, their faces a mix of relief that it wasn't them, and sorrow that it was the littlest this time. We were a family unto ourselves, the only three who knew the story behind our closed doors. My brother was the oldest, my sister the middle, and then there was me. Each of us with our own unrelenting desire to please, our bond formed in pain and silence, the sibling understanding. When my brother and sister found themselves under the heavy blow of the disappointments of our father, I would scramble to help. I remember cleaning my brother's room, mopping up the overflow of water when my sister mistakenly left the sink running. I could not make it right. I could only witness and attempt to comfort with the few tools of love I had. I could not protect them from the hard that was growing down into their own stories as their bodies grew tall. Beyond the pain of life we lived behind closed doors was the expectation to hide the hurt, pretend in the public moments. Let the stressed, angry one enjoy being the life of the party. We knew our roles. We knew how to look the best, act the best, use our best manners, or we would be met with anger or silence. The truth is, my siblings and I enjoyed pleasing our parents. We excelled at it, worked at it, and lived to impress and please them. But I believe this is the story of most young children, the seeking of approval, love, and acceptance in the first place you know life. I wondered who we thought we were fooling. It was as if we had all agreed upon an unspoken set of rules, a conspiracy of silence. Timothy S. Lane and Paul David Tripp, How People Change. Eventually, my siblings grew and left the house, no longer burdened under the expectation of popularity. They followed in the footsteps of my parents dutifully, joining fraternities and sororities and accepting paddles of their own, but quietly promising never to let them hang on their walls, never be used on the little bodies they were entrusted to raise. I walked away in stages. I believe at the age of 14 I stiffened my neck. My justice met its final straw, and the absence of my siblings hardened me. With my brother and sister gone from home, I no longer had the comforting connection that understood what life behind our closed doors was like. In their absence, a bitterness and loneliness grew in me that caused me to look for family in the connection with my friends. I spent as much time away from home as possible. My driver's license was the greatest gift I had ever received. I became resentful to any authority in my life. I was hard, hurtful, angry, and ready to leave, but life demanded more years under the roof of the family I no longer walked in step with, in private or in public. Remembering now the unkindness I lived with all those years ago hurts my heart. I hurt that my parents and I didn't have the strength of character to move toward one another. I was living with such anger, and I became an expert at pushing my parents away, farther and farther away. I struggle telling this story, but this is the story that brought me to the end of myself. My ugly, hard heart took me down a road of desperation. I was a seeker, seeking comfort in a cheap beer, seeking to live in the laughter of the cloudy mind marijuana brought, and seeking comfort from the boyfriends who were struggling in many of the same ways as me. These young men were an attempt at running away from my own reality into the comfort of the companionship of another. We were playing like adults, but as children, we didn't have the ability to navigate life with our lack of understanding. We knew precious little about life and love. In my rebellion and anger toward my parents, I would walk in their front door and climb out my bedroom window. I worshipped at the altar of cheap beer, bad pot, and lame relationships. I was happily living on an island with my friends, enjoying utter freedom within the lies I presented to my parents. Mom and Dad were utterly connected to each other, and my problems and hardness were working at distancing them, as I had hoped. I still met them occasionally at the Sandpiper restaurant to pretend and play the game that life was good, great even, if that would buy me a little more freedom. Slowly, the world I was running to became darker and darker, and my need for the escape became deeper and deeper. By my senior year, I had decided on a university solely based on the availability of drugs and parties. I chose a smoking dorm because I knew that's where the best partiers could be found. I was set to continue on this hard-hearted, dark path.